Welcome to the show that teaches you the things your parents and teachers are too afraid to, the Helios blog. Today, Piers Morgan talks about the reality of the war in Gaza. Here we go.
The reason she's alone is because she's difficult.
Women are not accepting the bare minimum.
Women fuck men they respect.
All the women who say things like, I'm strong, independent, I don't need no man, like, y'all impress me.
Women just gaslight each other and say what they want to hear.
About 45 minutes trying to bring someone back to life and unfortunately failed. One of them came with the head.
This guy looks like he's seen some crap.
And the entire torso effectively completely crushed, like an 18-wheeler just drove on top of him. Another one came completely dead with the face completely burnt, and the mother was following them screaming. And I asked her, "What's going on? Why? What happened?" She said, "Look, we live east of Khan Yunis, and we heard the bombing happening close to us in Rafah.
Very graphic.
So we decided to evacuate, even though she said the area where we live is not considered a red zone. It's not a war zone. Relatively safe." She said we decided to leave. We packed our stuff on the back of a car, and I told my son as soon as we were ready, I told him to go upstairs, just make sure that all the doors are locked before we leave the house. And suddenly I see a tank rolling close to the house. I thought it's just, we'll be safe. And she said, by the time my son went down, the tank hit the house and several people were killed. She said, we didn't have cars because there's no gas in Gaza. So they have one car with gas that she could carry the 3-4 bodies with her and bring them to the hospital. 3 of them actually died, and the other 3 were seriously injured.
Christ almighty.
So this is the reality. We've seen burns, we've seen broken bones, we've seen crushed bodies, children with broken skulls. I just cannot describe the horror,
Real war,
honestly, that we have seen so far.
And it's quite likely to get immeasurably worse if there's a full-scale invasion of Rafah. I know that you were in a safe house with many of your team in Rafah, but you had to evacuate. Why was that?
We call it the safe house that's no longer safe. We spent about a week in that house, and we were operating at the European hospital, kind of business as usual, dealing with the casualties and treating people with acute injuries and so on. But then 1 week into our stay at that house, we heard that the eastern part of Rafah was under evacuation. Our house, fortunately, happened to be in block 6 in Rafah, and it was not in the area that was required to evacuate. So we thought we are relatively safe. And this house is considered deconflicted. So we are known, our position is known to the Israeli army and to the organizations that we have come with, primarily the WHO. It's a deconflicted house. So we decided to stay, but in the middle of the night, the bombings that took place within less than 500 meters radius was unbelievable. The sound, the shaking of the building, like literally in an unbelievable way, just scared the hell out of it.
It sounds to me like how they describe the bombing of Britain in World War II. That's what it sounds like. Similar. Again, you can see on the guy's face, he's not doing well.
I mean, the level of terror at night was unbearable for any member of my team. I have 12 Americans, 3 Brits, 1 from Egypt and 1 from Oman, and we've all decided collectively that we're not going to spend the time, any nights in this house anymore, even though we did not receive any evacuation orders, and we all basically came to the European hospital, and that's where we're staying since then.
Israel insists that it's getting humanitarian aid through, including medical supplies. What is your experience of that? Are you getting these medical supplies?
Unfortunately not. I can tell you my team at times feels useless.
Hilarious. It would be hilarious if it wasn't so sad.
Honestly, I have the best of the best in terms of expertise between surgeons, primary care physicians, nurses, wound care specialists. But sometimes you have an injury coming to the emergency room, and you look for basic supplies, as simple as anesthesia medications, you don't have them. Blood, you don't have it. Basic wound care supplies, you don't have it. And one thing, Piers, that really struck everybody on the team is that the Palestinians seem to operate at a frequency that's different from the emergency teams in the West. It's basically rationing of resources. Sometimes you have an injury that's coming to the hospital, and they say we can't do anything about it. The way we think, the way in America thinks, like, let's do whatever we can to save their lives, or his or her life. And we've seen this multiple times. We try our best. We basically consume resources. For them, it's a waste because he is dead. Just don't spend time. So this reminds me of COVID time, right? Even though he still has a chance of survival, they decide not to take to work much on him or her because that's a waste of resources. As I said, this reminds me of COVID time when people at the hospitals in America and Europe and around the world were saying, this patient has the right or the chance of survival, so let's put him on or her on a ventilator, and that one does not let him kind of die slowly and humanely. That's kind of where we are in Gaza because there are no...
Imagine that's you. Imagine that. It's that bad that they're literally like, yep, we don't have the resources to treat you, just die. We could if we had the resources, but...
medical supplies. Barely any medical supplies. A lot of people die here. There are injuries of people that could, in the West, by the Western standards, could be saved. But here they cannot be saved because they have to go on a priority list, which is really, really heartbreaking.
If there is a full-scale invasion of Rafah, as Prime Minister Netanyahu has indicated there will be, what do you fear may happen?
Lord of death.
Disaster. Absolute disaster. Yesterday night, actually, or yesterday evening, I went and drove into Al-Mawasi.
You want to have the biggest humanitarian crisis since the Rwanda stuff? It's coming.
Area west of Khan Yunis. I wish if I could share these pictures with you. Literally all the way to the horizon. Tents everywhere. Any direction you look, you see hundreds, actually thousands and thousands and thousands of tents everywhere, with families left stranded without water, without proper shelter. And Piers, let me kind of tell you how reality is on the ground in these camps. A lot of people in the West, in America, like where I come from, think that when Israel says we've evacuated Eastern Rafah, the first thing that comes to mind, you give them warnings and you send them, air-conditioned buses. They board the buses and they go into these evacuation areas in Al-Mawasi.
For sure.
And by the time you get there, you have these beautiful tents lined up with sanitary facilities waiting for you. That's not true. I mean, what we had to run from our safe house that's no longer safe, literally under the bombardment of the Israeli army. We just gathered our stuff and ran out of this house, which is a typical Palestinian experience. We did it twice. Our presence and our stay here in Gaza, the Palestinians have done it more than 7 or 8 times in the past 7 months. And when they get to Al-Mawasi, it's a desert. It's really a sandy land, empty land, where people carry their belongings on the back of a car or a truck or a donkey. They just dump it there and they start figuring out what's next. First, no water. You don't have tents because the supplies are not allowed in. And so
you're going to die. Lots. What he's describing? Yeah, that's not survivable for most people.
So they have to figure out how to create a shelter. And the problem is, if to buy a tent in Gaza today costs more than $1,000 to $2,000 because you can't find it. No organization gives you tent. There are some in the past, but currently none. So you go with your family of 5, 6, 10 children and your wife in the middle of absolutely nowhere. You don't know where the water is. And I've seen it with my own eyes, and I'm more than happy to share. I actually see it on our Instagram page on Pleasure Scientific that we posted or will be posted very soon. What people do, they dig a hole in the ground because they are near the beach. So the water table is very shallow, just about 2 meters deep, and then water comes out. So people collect that water and use it for drinking, washing, for everything. But the water is brown. It's brackish water.
Oh, no. You know what that sounds like to me? Sudan, South Sudan.
And for them to go get fresh water, they have sometimes to walk to 2 to 3 miles to find it. And if they find it, sometimes they have to pay for it. And it's very expensive. So things have...
Guarded by people with AKs, of course, just like South Sudan.
Done 10 and 15 times in price, almost in everything in Gaza. Just to give you a simple example. For my team, for us to fill our cars with gasoline, with gas, 1 gallon of gas in Gaza cost $100. This is what we pay as an organization, $100 per gallon of gas. Apply this
per gallon, $100.
To everything. I don't like to describe this as a war. I like to describe it as madness, absolute madness.
And have you seen any evidence of Hamas, either in Rafah or Khan Yunis?
I hope you believe me if I tell you I haven't even seen a police in Gaza, which is also another shocking experience, because you would expect in such circumstances, in the absence of police, that you will see chaos. People are, killing each other, but the crime rate in Gaza remains very low because people support each other and they kind of go through this tough experience together. We've been in Gaza. This is our second mission.
Well, didn't they explain that it's basically like a camp, like Gaza's like surrounded, like a camp. So it's like a big ghetto, basically. And it's like an amusement park. I mean, of course, it's not an amusement park. You understand what I'm saying. The analogy I'm trying to use is when you can't leave, they can increase the prices, and there's literally nothing you can do. They have a forced monopoly. Except the monopoly is on, if you don't pay us what we want, you die. Right? They have monopoly on water, and things like that. That's crazy.
Mission. So several weeks now in Gaza.
Lord.
Personally, this is my second week. I have not seen, and none of my medical team members have seen any form of militants either at the hospital or otherwise. All what we receive at the hospital are injured and killed civilians. And when I say civilians, I like to stress that they are families, a mother, a father, their children, injuries. One of the latest cases that we had to work on, a young man in his 20s, came in still breathing, but in a state of a shock. So the team tried to resuscitate him, but then they failed, and they decided to actually crack his chest open. And again, I'm sorry about the graphic description of the situation. And then they could not actually save him. So heartbreaking. Absolutely horrific. I mean, honestly, I've seen so many things in my life. I was there looking. After 5 minutes, I personally felt dizzy. I just could not handle.
Can I ask you? Let me ask you, Dr. Nasser, just finally. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to go to somewhere like that, knowing what may be coming imminently. Indeed. What is it that motivates you to risk your own life to be there?
I think we are at unprecedented time in history, Piers. And every member of my team would like to be part of it. That's something we will talk to our children and grandchildren about what happened in Gaza. It feels like a day of judgment to many. For the Palestinians, it's an endless suffering for absolutely a crime that they have not committed. 1.5 million people, almost 2.2 million people are put in inhumane conditions like no other maybe the history has ever seen and will ever see. And this madness has to stop.
We've seen it.
Dr. Nasser, thank you very much indeed for taking the time from that incredibly busy environment you're operating in. I really do appreciate it. I want to wish you and your team all the very best and stay as safe as you can, given how dangerous it clearly is. But I thank you on behalf of everyone watching this for the service that you're doing for the people there.
Thank you, Piers.
Well, to debate, I'm joined from New York by Professor Norman Finkelstein, political scientist and pro-Palestine activist, and from Efrat in the West Bank by Yishai Fleischer, the spokesman for the Jewish community of Hebron, and Minister Ben Gvir's former advisor for international affairs. Well, welcome to both of you. Dr. Finkelstein, let me start with you, if I may. We are on the verge, it seems.
Freaking disaster. Notice the guy on the right. He looks so happy. Okay, interesting.
Of an inevitable full-scale invasion of Rafah. Prime Minister Netanyahu has made that clear. It's also clear that America, Israel's biggest and most powerful ally, is extremely concerned about this. In fact, Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said not only does he think it's a big mistake for Israel to do this, but he believes that the war on Hamas is not really working, that Hamas is now regrouping in the north anyway. And so on every level, from the American assessment, this is something that shouldn't be happening. What's your response?
Well, I can't speak to the military situation because I have no professional knowledge of it. I can't speak to the humanitarian situation. The International Crisis Group, a very respected mainstream organization, put out a report about 3 weeks ago in which it says there is no middle ground. If there is an invasion of Rafah, there's going to be mass hunger, mass starvation in at least northern Gaza and perhaps elsewhere. And they were emphatic about the fact that you have to make a choice. Either suspend the invasion or accept that you're going to cost the lives of thousands and perhaps more than thousands of civilians in Gaza. The second point I would make is
I don't think they care so much about that, honestly.
Is that at least as of the last few days...
By the way, you can see the rage in the guy on the right's eyes. Tell me if I'm wrong.
The Undersecretary for Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, has said that no aid is coming through to Gaza anymore, from that Rafah has been shut down, that Kerem Shalom has been shut down, and that Gaza is now in a position where it was a few weeks ago when Israel was effectively not admitting any humanitarian aid to Gaza.
Big surprise.
So at a humanitarian level, should there be is there a full scale? There is an invasion right now and large numbers of people. I guess the current estimate is 300,000. Large numbers of people have been displaced. Displaced where is unclear because it's unclear where to go. But if there's a full scale...
Didn't the guy say in the desert?
...invasion touching the core of the Rafah refugee population, then one can, at least according to the International Crisis Group, expect mega deaths.
Ishai Fleischer, I watched Dr. Phil's interview with Prime Minister Netanyahu last night, and he was emphatic, Netanyahu, that there would be no stopping Israel going into Rafah and that they had to do this because Hamas had to be eliminated. But it would seem from American intelligence that Hamas is already regrouping in the north of Gaza.
Didn't the guy say there's absolutely no police, no Hamas anywhere?
Which surely should be of significant concern to Israel, shouldn't it? If the strategy is simply not working and Hamas is regrouping now in areas that were thought to have been places where Hamas had been removed, doesn't that suggest this military strategy is not working?
Indeed.
First thing, Piers, I want to thank you so much for having me on the show. And I also want to use this opportunity to wish Israel a happy 76th Independence Day. Tonight we celebrate that. Israel's the most exciting project of the Jewish people in 2,000 years.
Yeah, everybody's got, like, you know, frowns on their faces, and then this guy. Is this like 1984? Like, look at his expression. Is anyone else seeing this? Does it look like a freaking psychopath or like a puppet? Like to anybody else? Is it just me?
So this is a big deal for us. Today was Memorial Day. Now it's Independence Day. And so, you know, I really appreciate the chance to speak about these things with you today on your important show. With regarding to Gaza and the Hamas war. Okay, so we're going to have to fight them in Rafah. And if we have to fight them in the north, we'll do that as well. We're in a war. We're in a war. We're not here to just give it up right now just because it's not working here or there. We're at a war with people who have dug tunnels 15 stories deep, people who want to destroy the state of Israel. That is their charter. It's a religious charter. They say that they want to get rid of all of Israel, starting with Gaza. And if we have to pivot to the north, we'll do that. The Jewish people are used to conflict. We've been through a lot of conflicts throughout our history, 3,000 years of conflicts, but we're still here. So if we have to go north, we'll go north. It doesn't. What follows from your question is not that we should just give up and not attack in the south. It just means that we'll have to move on our attack north, and we're going to deal with this thing because we have no other option. And I want to remind you, Piers, that it's a proxy war as well. If we lose this thing, we're going to lose it to the Iranians who just declared that they have a nuclear bomb. We have to fight this. We have to prosecute this war to the end and send a signal to the Middle East that we're not joking around.
Okay, let me play you Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, what he had to say on the weekend shows in America.
We're seeing parts of Gaza that Israel has cleared of Hamas, where Hamas is coming back, including in the north, including in Khan Yunis. As we look at Rafah, they may go in and have some initial success, but potentially at an incredibly high cost to civilians, but one that is not durable, one that's not sustainable. And they will be left holding the bag on an enduring insurgency because a lot of armed Hamas will be left, no matter what they do in Rafah.
Really sounds to me like what happened in Afghanistan, right? Like, they tried to take it over, and then all that happened is they had to fight for every single house. And they didn't end up taking it over. All that ended up happening is lots of people dying for no reason. And, lots of cost being incurred for no reason. But, hooray us, I guess.
Or if they leave and get out of Gaza, as we believe they need to do, then you're going to have a vacuum, and a vacuum that's likely to be filled by chaos, by anarchy, and ultimately by Hamas again.
Now, Ishai Fleischer, the problem is America is, as I said, America is Israel's biggest ally by far, also biggest supplier of military hardware, which President Biden's already said he's going to stop a lot of that going to Israel if they go into Rafah. But to have the Secretary of State of the United States expressing such concern about the military strategy, surely that has to concern you, doesn't it? Because ultimately, if you kill all these innocent civilians in the process of getting rid of Hamas...
I like that he's smiling, the guy on the right.
But you end up not getting rid of Hamas.
While we're talking about this.
That is a failed war, isn't it?
Okay, so first thing with regarding to civilians. We have to remember that civilian deaths is actually part of Hamas's strategy against us. They want Israel to kill a lot of civilians so that Piers Morgan can ask, hey, what's going on with the civilians? So that the Anthony Blinkens can give Israel a hard time. So that is in their interests. They are actually going against the Geneva Convention's stated
propaganda war right here.
Laws that you're not supposed to put in civilians in front of.
Yeah, but Israel is also killing. Israel is also killing thousands of civilians. You accept that?
Yeah, yes, we are because we're in a war.
Right.
We're in a war, and we basically, it's like this, Piers. If we don't do it, then basically we are sending the war onto the next generation. We're just passing the buck. We're kicking the can down the road. It means that my children are going to have to prosecute the next war. We've already seen that. We've already had many wars with Gaza. This is like war number, 5? So if we don't take care of this business, they're going to come stronger at us. They're going to declare victory. We can't have that. We can't have Iran be victorious in Gaza as it has been in Yemen, as it has been in Iraq, as it has been in South Lebanon. We can't have that. So this time, October 7th is an opportunity to clean house and to make sure this doesn't come back again. Now, people on the...
Man, these people are straight up psychopaths. Like, you can just lie so convincingly, so not a tinge of regret, not a tinge of sadness on their face. Nothing. Look at his expression. Look at how serene it is while he's talking about what he's talking about. Straight psychopath, man.
More right-wing part of the spectrum believe that Israel should actually hold on to Gaza and have minimally military presence there, if not more. Because if we just back out of there, what happens is the next Hamas or the next evolution of Hamas will take over. So yeah, Piers, bottom line is it's a war and we got to fight it.
Right, Norman Finkelstein, Ishai Fleischer said this
I wonder if I can I wonder if I can briefly respond to that.
Yes, you can, yeah.
Thank you so much. I think there's a bit of a misnomer here by designating what Israel's aim is to simply impose a major military defeat on Hamas. I have no doubt that that's correct. However, I do believe that what you're describing, quoting Anthony Blinken, as a failed strategy is only half correct, because Israel has another goal. The goal is to finally solve the Gaza question for once and for all. As the other person said, there have been many high-tech Israeli massacres in Gaza. It's actually quite a large number, more than 5, but I won't bother with the figure. And the goal right now is not just to mow the lawn in Gaza, but to extirpate, pull out from the roots, every blade of grass in Gaza. That is to say, to make Gaza unlivable. And in terms of that goal, which is separate and discrete from the goal of inflicting a military defeat on Hamas, that goal is coming close to achievement. They have made the north of Gaza and they have made central Gaza unlivable.
Yeah, so the idea is you make it so bad that all the people leave, then you take it over. Free real estate. Okay, let's end the video there. Hit the like, hit the sub, hit all notifications. Drop me a donation like Hunter M, Adrian, Tom and Bobby, Dylan, Renaissance Press, Brian, Andrew, and Alan. Shout outs to you. Most recent purchaser of Strategist Guide to Seduction. Thank you. Go buy my books at bit.ly/heliosbooks. If you want coaching, if you want me to give you some advice, some good advice, just message me at theheliosblog@gmail.com. That's my email. If you want early access to my videos, that's on my Patreon. That's patreon.com/theheliosblog. Thank you so much for listening, guys, especially if you listen to the end. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.